I was actually thinking about explaining pointers in a way that is easy to understand. Unfortunately, the way pointers are defined is the reason why they cause so much confusion. But pointers are really easy to understand. I don't know how easy they are to implement, but they are really easy to understand. Okay, so before we go into pointers, we need to understand a bit of memory. Okay, so see over here, this is a representation of the computer memory, and you can think of a memory as a a, a, a long line of houses. So each house but contains data. So each each box of memory over here is the data that memory holds. And with each box, we have an address of the memory location, which here it is represented in this shaded region. So, for example, we can take one box of memory that has been given a value, and this is something the compiler itself gives, the value of the memory address. Unless, I don't know, maybe later on you can yourself exactly designate the address of the memory or not, but I don't think that's a very smart idea. So anyway, the compiler over here gives once you define the data that the memory is going to hold, the compiler will automatically give address of the of the location where the data is being held. So we've defined, for example, we've defined a integer. Oh, let it define over here. Integer number is equal to 200. So we've defined over here an integer 200. As you can see, somewhere in the memory, when we are going to run the program, a small chunk of memory is going to hold this data, right? So it holds integer and 200, right? And it has an address as well. Now, what pointers do is actually pointers hold the address in the area where data held normally. So let's say we define a pointer. So pointer holds the address of the integer num. Okay, so over here we can say that we have a pointer, right? And we can easily define it. So this area we can say pointer to p, and it actually holds this address. So right, so the pointer is actually holding this address. So if I can easily change it to hold the address of this section, this section, this section, this section, anywhere. But as of now, the pointer is holding this address. If I don't want it to hold any address, I can simply say null pointer, right? But as of now, I am holding the address of this number. Okay. Now the area where the but pointer itself is a location in the memory, and it itself has an address, right? This is the address of the pointer. The value of pointer, of course, is this, and I should really define it as this, right? The value of the pointer is this. So if I say cout, what value does the pointer hold? And I would say, I'll just this is slow. Okay, yeah. So you can see that both values are the same, which means that the value of the pointer and the value of the address, this AND represents address. Okay, but what is the address of the location where pointer is? Okay, so we say now slightly different. And so the first thing is the address, the value that pointer holds, the address of basically the first thing is the value that pointer holds, which is the address of this variable, integer variable, to which the pointer is pointing towards. I can make it easy and freeform, right? And I would say, yeah, so let's slightly modify it to make it easy and no, sorry. And arrow type, I mean, yes. So here we go, and we don't want our begin arrow type. Yes. Yeah. So pointer holds the value of this address in it. Okay, so that is the value it is holding, but it itself has a value, the memory of address of the pointer itself, and that is this, slightly different from the value for it. Might be very different, it might be slightly different, it really doesn't matter, but the fact is that this address and this address are in the same. Now, what is the value of what the pointer is? The value of what the pointer is pointing towards. Now, this is important because now this symbol means what the pointer is pointing towards. This thing, right? The value of the memory address, basically what this means is the value of the memory address, right? And that is this. The value that this memory address is holding inside it is 200. So when we print out, we get 200. And that is the same if I said the value of integer. Now that is going to be, right? So yeah, so that's it. Okay, that's the concept of a pointer. The pointer is actually holding within it a memory address, and the main confusion actually starts from here, because over here people think it should be defined something like this, because pointer, because if we say cout over here, this exactly prints this, but the definition has a difference, because pointer is always pointing towards some kind of memory address. It does not point towards the value that the integer is holding, the value that the memory is holding. It could be integer, double, string, whatever. But this was done so that the concept of pointers can easily be understood. The application of pointers is basically connections. You see here it makes a connection with this. If I suddenly wanted to change and go over here, it can go over here, it can go over here, it can go over here, you know. So and I don't have to again and again define variables. Probably in more intensive tasks which require a whole lot of computation, pointers are very memory efficient. Maybe in gaming, maybe things like that that require a whole lot of changes of variables. So I hope you understood what pointers are and how the memory works. So that will be all. Thanks.